There, I got a green light. Well, Bill, thanks for that. Thanks for reminding me of three difficult years. It was a challenge. By the way, Jimmy, Bill, I love what your barber's doing. They're doing great. In about 2 weeks, I'll need his phone number. So today, just a real quick question. How many of you have been in the military? Oh, like everybody. Okay. How many of you served in combat? Okay, so we got about a dozen of them. How many of you played, pretty high level, even high school level sports, real competitive sports? So we've covered just about everybody, it seems like here. Let me ask you something. From those days, you're all young. Do you remember the camaraderie? Do you miss it? I served, and I never served in combat. I was a B.1 guy on active duty back in the Cold War days. So no one ever shot at me, thank heavens, because we didn't launch any nukes. But I still remember the camaraderie. And to this day, I'm 67 years old, and I still stay in touch with about half a dozen guys I flew with back in the day. I went from the military and into the airlines, and you get a little bit of, that was more like a job, not a lot of camaraderie, not a lot of passion, and it kind of got tough later in life because I kind of fed on that. We got guys here, we got a SWAT guy here, we got other guys, and you kind of live for that. But as you get older, this is what society expects of you. They expect of you to get into that long march to the end of your life, that long gray march where you get a job, you hopefully find a good wife, you raise some kids, you save some money, you go on vacation, but you still don't have that passion in life that you had when you were young, And I'm not saying here that to look for that passion, you need to go join the Marines or a hockey team, because I'm looking around the room, they're not going to take you. Yeah, well, I know a guy who plays in the over 80 league and he does really well in hockey, so there might be an exception to that. But the important thing to remember here in life is you got to get off that long march to the end of your life where you get up in the morning and it doesn't matter if you're retired, if you're working, you get up, you got your routine, and you read the news, you drink your coffee, you eat your ham and eggs, and you go off to work, or worse, you retire, and you kind of, well, I got one thing to do today. The wife says I got to wash the windows, or something like that. And that's a good thing. Those are important things. But you got to find that passion. Otherwise, it's, I've seen it in older men. I've seen it in me. I'm on I think on my third retirement. I retired from the military, I retired, then from the National Guard, I retired from the airlines. I was retired from politics as a mayor. And it works, that retirement really works really good for, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months. You get it all done, the garage is clean. The wife isn't hollering at you for all your projects anymore. You've done some hunting, some fishing, and whatever you do. And all of a sudden you go, man, what am I getting up for? And I had to fix that. Everyone's got to fix that. Otherwise, life is, I've seen this in the old guys, that they just get miserable. Their minds go because they're not sharp. They're not struggling every day. They're not thinking every day. They watch Fox News and they complain about the left, which is not a bad thing to do. But there's got to be more to it than that. And so you kind of got to discover what your purpose is in life. And it could be something as simple as, I'm going to walk the dog today, I'm going to do this, I'm going to study, I'm going to read. But you can't sit there and look at the TV or look out the window. But before you can get to, I'm a checklist guy, I'm a flying guy, so there's a checklist. you're trying to get to that meaning in life, discover your meaning in life. And so from that meaning will come that passion that's the passion that God wants you to have for your life. And it's more often than not easy. It's difficult. And it's hard. Being the mayor was hard. Being a governor would be hard. These are difficult things. And in this day and age in politics, none of it's fun. Just none of it. But you do it because for me, I'm not telling you to go run for governor. I mean, everyone else is. So there's no sense in anyone else here getting in the race. Trust me, that would be a good thing. I'm not saying that. But the most important thing you got to do is you got to start at step one. And step one is you got to figure out who you are. Again, I'm 67 years old, and I learned this probably late in life, probably in my 50s. You know, you ever see that guy that seems always just people go to? He's that guy that seems to just be comfortable in his own skin. He doesn't have to dress to impress people. He doesn't have to say the right things. He'll sit in the corner of the room and be very comfortable with himself. That's the kind of guy it took me, 40 or 50 years to become, because I was struggling so hard every day. Aviation was kind of a tough business, especially the military aviation was extremely competitive. You know, we had a motto back in the squadron, we'd rather die than fail. You know, failure is the worst thing that can happen to you. I didn't crash an airplane, so I didn't die, so there was that. But, you know, I got into the airlines, life got easy. And then I said, well, what am I doing here? I got a beautiful wife, loves me. I got 2 great kids that are doing very well, but it comes back to me, what am I? What am I doing? And finally, I embarked on a path to figure that out. And I was always saved. I got saved when I was 11 years old. But there was something else. And you've got to get to that point. So how you do that is very simple. Just read your owner's manual. It's called the Bible. It'll tell you what you're supposed to be passionate about. And it's not going to be the same. There's 200 people in here roughly. There's going to be 200 different passions. And so once you figure out who you are and you capture that passion, then you can bond together with other men to be bold, to stand in the line of defense. Because I'm telling you what's coming in this world, and especially in this country that I see. And I've traveled most of the world, and it's spreading like wildfire. We're in a deep state of collapse in Western civilization. And there's a lot of reasons, but the first reason is the men have failed. And you can blame it on a lot of different things. I tend to blame it on the failure in Western Europe, especially the failure of the pulpit. The preachers didn't preach right. They turned left. They accepted the world's view of things and not God's view of things. And so our pastors didn't lead us. It's happened in this country. It's happened in this town. We've got maybe a dozen pastors at most in this city. And I've dealt with them as one of the founders of Last Family Council. We brought them together, and you just couldn't convince them. You got to stand up and fight. They're worried about their building project, their parking lot, their bus ministry. They're worried about all their youth ministry, but they're not preaching the hard, cold gospel every day, every Sunday. So the men are out there listening to that and not getting the leadership they're supposed to get, because it all comes down to the spiritual realm. If you're broken in here, or if you're at least not right in here, you're not going to be right in your daily life out there. And if you're not right in your daily life, if you don't know who you are, you can't bond together with other men who know who they are, and then stand up for your families, for your wives, your kids, your city, state, your country. Because we're failing, and we're failing so fast, I can't even believe it. We have, 2 weeks ago, we had a church in Minnesota where people invaded the church and were screaming at young kids for being white and privileged or something. And one of those 3 girls that you saw that the guy went up to with his camera, the one on the left with the reddish sweater up, that was my niece. So now she's got to go in and do depositions against this guy. She's got to testify against him. And we're excited for her, actually, because she has an opportunity at 20 years old to fight. But we're going stark raving mad, and the men are failing because they're not led well. And the men themselves, we're not in the Scripture enough. We're not saved, possibly. We're not reading the Scripture. We're not getting the wisdom and the guidance that we need. We're not seeking it. We're seeking fun. We're seeking entertainment. We're seeking hunting, fishing, flying, traveling. We're seeking all the things that we're not supposed to be seeking until we figured out who we are. And I'll leave it to the professionals like Ron Hoffman and other pastors that are here to quote chapter and verse, because they do it. Ron does this every week, and he does a very good job. I go to this church. I've been here since 1992. And you've got to find this out, because the world isn't going to get better. And you as men, we as men, you're measured in how well you stand up for your families, how well you treat women in your life. That's in my mind, single greatest measure of a good man is how well he treats the people, the women in his life, and how well. And I think the quote goes, you know the true character of a man when you see how he treats someone who can do absolutely nothing for him. That's the measure. You know, how do you treat the waitress? You know, do you treat her with respect? Because she's as deserving of respect of anyone else. I've sat and talked to Donald Trump, shook his hands, talked to him. Nicest guy in the world. That waitress deserves absolutely every bit of his respect as him. So, anyways, I won't talk too much longer. I'm just trying to, I'm speaking first so I can see you save the best for last. Bill, very good decision. But I hope to kind of just kick this off for the folks. I've got to pack up and leave here. I got to drive to the peninsula for a couple meetings here this afternoon. But I just wanted to, and I want to say, Bill, thanks, and Jimmy, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. I've done this a couple times before, and I really appreciate this group. Last time we did it was over at the main event. The food was a lot better. And but the Costco muffins are good too. So anyways, well, I was told that I'm supposed to take some questions, Q&A. If that's not true, I can pack up and get out of your hair. If there's no questions, I can pack up and get out of your hair too. So I guess we're grabbing a mic somewhere, Jimmy. Okay, I think there's a hand up back there.
Favorite duty station?
My favorite duty station? I can't say that I had a bad one, but I still fly. But I love flying the B.O.L.D. It was Rapid City, South Dakota. And the other thing I liked about it is I got, during that, I think it was the fall of 85, I got 31 days of bow hunting in the Badlands for mule deer. So, and I did that, so I'd get up early, hunt, drive back, jump in the B-1, fly for 6 or 8 hours, and then come back. I did that 31 times, so that was my favorite duty station. and I got a nice buck, too. So, but I mean, here, I'll be honest with you, here's a plug, too, I'm going to do. If you got young men, young women that are a little bit confused on where they want to go and do in life, I came up here, I did 9 years of active duty, then I did a few years of reserves at 11th Air Force as a war plans officer. And then I did 12 years of Alaska Air National Guard. And I'm just telling you, great organizations. Alaska Air National Guard, Army National Guard, absolute great organizations. If you got a kid that just needs a little bit of direction, get them started. Sometimes you just got to get them going, and they launch, and they're fine. Air National Guard, Army National Guard, you just couldn't. They treated me way better than I deserved. I'll tell you that. So,
I appreciate how you spoke on men not being led correctly,
mm-hmm.
And there are the leaderships in the home and the marriage. And I've been learning a lot about that last year. And so, for men that have had filled leadership roles, or men that are starting to get into leadership roles, what is one piece of advice that you have followed yourself for stepping into a leadership role?
Well, I guess in the big category, it comes down to the issues that make up character, and I don't see it much in public life anymore. But I think the first one has probably got to be humility. I think all the great leaders that I've studied and followed have been, technically proficient, very high morals, but very humble. I don't know if you know the story of the Lion of Fallujah. For you Marines in here, you do. Douglas Zembiak, Major Douglas Zembiak, he was the Lion of Fallujah. And it's funny, I was just reading a little bit on him this morning, and it's an account after his death in battle. And the thing that struck me, it was an account by his first sergeant, and his first sergeant said he was incredibly humble as a leader. Not weak, but he was humble. He says, until I went to a leadership meeting at his apartment when he was a young lieutenant, he said, at Zembiak's apartment, which was on base in California, he says, I wouldn't have known he was an academy guy, a Naval Academy guy. I wouldn't have known that he was a very high-level wrestler. I wouldn't have known nothing because he never spoke about himself, and he was always humble. So that's what I've admired in great leadership, and it all fills out that whole spectrum that is, I think, character. Because if you're not honest, I've had leaders that were not honest. Couldn't trust them. They would have this phrase when we'd pack up the squadron and deploy somewhere. It was gears up, rings off. And I think we all know what that means. So, and then I would lose all respect for those guys. And gears up, rings off, that's an admission of failure, moral failure. So.
Got a question for you. So, when you take office,
this is not a political stump. We shouldn't be talking politics here.
But you know what? That's kind of what I was talking about. Sometimes we have to. What do you do? What do you do for us? What do you do for the men in the room? How do you support us? How do you make us doing what we're doing a little bit easier to bring our message out, to bring our word out? How does that? How do you help us?
Well, let me give you the answer you're probably not expecting is don't look to government and politics for leadership. Don't look, especially moral leadership. Don't look to me. Look to your pastor first. I would say in our society, I've always done that here with Dr. Prevost in the last several years. Pastor Hoffman, he'll get up and speak here in just a few minutes. But my job is that job would be an executive job, and it's to make government function for you as best it possibly can, and not to sound too mundane, at the least cost. Government is very important. It just needs to be small and lean, and as lean as possible. We don't have that. We're doing crazy stuff that we shouldn't even be involved in. But that be it as it may, I would question the premise of your question, which is don't look to politicians for anything other than running government the best they can. So,
if you're a man residing in the Anchorage, Alaska area seeking solid biblical teachings and genuine biblical brotherhood, we invite you to join us on Tuesday evenings from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. We're located in the Student Union of Mountain City Church. If you'd like to contact us and find out more information, please email us at men@mountaincity.church.